I remember being in Australia, and that's when we got like another milestone news for me was, do you guys want to go on tour with Slipknot and Lamb of God and do arenas? Which I'd never been on an arena tour before.
Yeah.
Right. So I remember like Matt and I were roommates in Australia. We're like, what the fuck? Well, holy shit, we're going to play arenas.
Hey, welcome to another episode of 2020. My name is Cory Peza, here as always with Siobhán Cronin and Benny Goodman. How goes it?
How goes it for you?
It goes.
It goes.
Today we're talking with Jon Donais of Anthrax, Shadows Fall. This episode's super cool.
And Living Wreckage, his new band.
Well, yeah, I was gonna get to. He announces a new project that by the time this comes out should actually.
And he was
be
on Lost
available.
Symphony, dude.
I was also going to get
Cory
to that.
was also going to get to that.
There's a whole bunch of things. John is a man of many talents, and we had a great time talking to him about growing up and getting into the metal scene and going. I think he made it pretty far in the metal scene. Headlining festivals with Anthrax, just a little bit.
Right. No, and he really started from like the ground level, so it was cool to hear the progression over time of starting in small clubs, forming a band in high school, to playing like massive festivals and stadiums, arenas, whatever.
Yeah. And he done good.
It's still very humbling knowing, because I think there's a lot of people that have a perception that, rock stars, especially at the level that Jon plays, which is a middle to lower upper tier. Like he plays pretty freaking high level, and people don't realize that, like, it's not the same. It's not the same as what you think it is. And it's a really, really hard life. And he's put in every moment of his life to be great at his instrument and to do what he needs to do, that when other people had to walk away for financial decisions, he's never stopped playing music ever, or ever stopped being on the road other than now.
Dude just wants to crack a beer and jam with his bros.
So here it is, part one with Jon Donais.
Ladies and gentlemen, before my cohort in crime loses her internet connection yet again, my name is Benny Goodman, and welcome to another episode of 2020, where we don't give a fuck about fucking anything, because fuck. And this week, we have back again, for maybe the 48th or 9th time, Siobhán Cronin.
Hey, I promise I'm not going to drop out this time. It's amazing how I live in a huge city and yet I can't get decent internet. How is that?
Don't make promises you can't keep.
Yeah. All right. We'll see.
And as well as his 49th appearance on the show, maybe 63rd or something, Cory Peza.
Yeah, who's counting?
Woo! Who's counting, right?
Cheers.
And I am so psyched. I am so psyched about this, because this guy is in two legendary metal bands. He represents the Massachusetts movement of heavy metal that Cory and I grew up loving, and he's a super cool dude. Has fucking toured with everybody. He has a brand new band. His name is Jon Donais. He also played in this little band called Lost Symphony, but you might know him from a band called Anthrax and from the legendary fucking Shadows Fall. And he has a new band where he's back together with Matt from Shadows Fall, which I think is a fantastic idea, since you did that on Chapter 2 with Lost Symphony. How are you, Jon?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I feel bad. Like I was been watching your episodes. You have all these cool people on. Now you got to talk to me. Feel bad.
No, you seem to have a super cool story. I'm really excited. Don't downplay yourself. This is going to be great.
That's just that Massachusetts wit. No, thanks for being here, man. I guess we'll start. Just what's going on with you? What are you doing in 2021?
So this has been the longest I've ever gone in my life since I've been 14. Playing a show. It's been a hard year. It's been crazy. And the last Anthrax show was in November of 2019.
Wow. Yeah.
And then, we were supposed to go to Japan last March, and that's when all this hit. And, I didn't see it coming at all. And, it's been a pretty scary year, but what's kept me busy is starting a new band called Living Wreckage, and I started that with Matt from Shadows Fall. And it's been a while since, the last Shadows Fall record was want to say 2012 maybe. So this is the first time I've had a long time to just really write and not have anything in the way and record. So that's pretty much saved me from going absolutely crazy.
Yeah, what's you know, we've talked to a few people that literally pretty much have lived on the road for the past like decade or more, and then all of a sudden it's like you're home and that's what you're doing. Like, how has that been for you just as a lifestyle?
Yeah, it's been, like I said, it's been really hard because I'm always ready, or I usually have something lined up. You know, even if you know you have a few months off, you know, well, in a few months I'm going into the studio to do something or going up back on the road. Anthrax is constantly busy since I've been playing with them for 8 years and not a lot of time off, you know. So for this, it's my life. It's like everything, the carpet got ripped out from under me, and it's just, it sucks.
Right. How does it feel like being creative or writing when you have so much time? Because I find for me, it's the opposite. The more time I have, the harder time I have to create something new, because I get inspired by the busyness and all the different shows and seeing things. And I feel like it's so hard when you're just at home, not traveling. But maybe it's opposite for you. I don't know.
Yeah, for me, it's opposite, because on the road, I don't play so much because sometimes you just feel like you're getting in the way of people. You don't really have that much privacy on the road. So you don't want to crank an amp and bore the guy or annoy the guy next to you who's trying to watch a movie or something. So I don't necessarily play so much on the road, but at home, you know, when I'm by myself, that's when the creativity starts to flow. And I find it easier to get things done without anything else getting in the way. And with that, I can just be 100% focused on writing and recording and not have to worry about anything else.
It's another funny thing to hear. You know, I don't want to annoy, you know, the guy on the bus watching a movie. Like another like rock star thing that wouldn't have been said in the 80s.
yeah.
I'm trying to keep it down, you know.
Yeah, Dimebag would have just set off an M80 right at Charlie's head and said, "Fuck you, we're partying right now."
He probably would have had a full stack on the bus.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Yeah. No, it's true. There's really not a lot of space. I mean, with me, even when we're touring, it's like I'm lucky if there's an extra room where I can go with a mute. I mean, I play an acoustic instrument though, so it's loud no matter what. You know?
Yeah. I remember we did an Ozfest. It was in 2003, and Zakk Wylde's been one of my favorite guitar players since I can remember. He's a huge influence hero to me. And that was the first time I got to meet him and tour with him. And Matt and I from Shadow Small were walking by his bus. He's like, "Hey, guys, come up." And he had one of those Marshalls, little mini, I don't know if it was a valve state or not, but he had a Marshall underneath his table in the front bus and was just cranking it and had us in there. This kid, he just had a kid. His kid's trying to sleep. And but that's the kind of thing. There's really not a lot of privacy on the road. And just to do that, you know, can annoy people.
But here's something you brought up a good point, because if you've seen Zakk Wylde play, he can do pentatonic shredding so fast. I mean, the faster he moves that beautiful Pantene fucking hair, the faster his fingers move, and he does it for prolonged periods of time. He's like David Blaine holding his breath for 19 minutes. He does NIB for 19 minutes of just straight up and down fucking ridiculousness. So his kid might not be able to sleep as much because the ability to do that is a fucking Olympic level guitar player. And that's why he's Zakk fucking Wylde, dude.
Yeah, he's an Energizer bunny with that pentatonic stuff. He's just nonstop.
Absolutely.
He takes a break. He takes a break when he's doing a squeal. You know, that's like his rest.
Well, that's
a big wide vibrato.
Yeah.
You mentioned that he's one of your influences, and I'd like to take it back so that maybe you can talk to some of the listeners who may not know you or your background, you know, kind of where you came from, how you got your early influences, how you learned guitar, like what got you interested in the type of music that you play, and how you kind of formed your own guitar style over time.
So, you know, well, when I first started listening to music, it was more 80s pop stuff like Michael Jackson, Hall & Oates. And my first rock band that I picked out myself was Bon Jovi. And that's when Slippery When Wet came out, like probably 86, I think it came out. And that band, I fell in love with that band. Like, that was the one that did it in those videos at MTV. I was like, holy shit. These guys are like superheroes. This is larger than life. And that's when all I hate the term hair metal, but that's what they call all those bands like Rat and Bon Jovi. I just think I just think it's fucking rock and roll, but people got to label it. But that stuff, seeing all the 80s metal bands just made it was so over the top, and they weren't even like human because you just see them on the TV every day, playing arenas of 40,000 people. It just, I remember going to those shows as a kid and people partying in the parking lot. It just seemed like way more fun back then. Everybody was ready.
It probably was.
Well, they weren't attached to their phone. They weren't tagging themselves in. Like Heavy Metal Parking Lot, the movie was actually happening. Because like, all you could do was walk to the other car to see what alcohol they had or what drugs they had. Were they listening to Maiden? Were they listening to Priest? Were they, you know? And then you made friends. And then if you got lost, your friend might have had a beeper that you could have called if you walked down the road and used the rotary phone and put you know fucking 5 cents in. Other than that, you're fucked.
Yeah, and if you were in high school and you threw up in your buddy's car or something, then you know they're filming it. You're the asshole on Facebook the next day, and everyone's laughing at you. Right. And really, you could get away with a lot more back then. But to go back, that's the stuff that made me want to play. And then when I started to play guitar, is probably when all that stuff was thrown out the window and grunge hit, like Nirvana and stuff. And I like all that stuff too, but I still wanted to learn how to play leads, and I love the lead guitar. I always loved the solo before I even knew how to play guitar. I was always drawn to the leads in songs. So that once that happened, it was even hard to find a teacher because nobody wanted to play that style anymore.
Were you already exposed to music by your parents, or did you have instruments? Like what was the situation that you grew up in terms of music?
No. We had a piano, and they started me on that, but I just wasn't interested because I wanted the guitar. That's that's what Ricky Sambora and Eddie Van Halen.
You need an extension of your dick. Pianos to play fucking Andrew Lloyd Webber, Phantom of the Opera bullshit.
It's too hard, man. I can't split my brain like that. Too much to think about. But
I mean, guitar seems pretty hard, but yeah.
So,
yeah, but no matter how good you are, like John, you can back me up on this, and you can tell me if I'm an idiot. But like you see a band like Children of Bodom, like that dude shreds on keyboards, but it still sounds lame to me. It sounds like a video game, and it makes me take it not seriously. And you can be the greatest keyboard player, but like my job when I play keyboards is to make it the least lame that it can possibly be. And even then, I know I'm playing keyboards, so it's probably lame.
Well, now I wish I stuck with it because I would love to know how to play them, but I'm having enough time still with the fucking guitar, so I got to spend as much time on that as possible.
Right.
So what the hell was I talking about?
Well, just kind of coming up with music. So I maybe what was the jump from like I want to do this to getting into actually being serious about it and starting with like bands?
Yeah. So then after that, Metallica and all the thrash metal, and that's pretty much how I started to learn how to play guitar was through the Metallica tab books, and just going to high school and jamming with people, and started a band with some of my friends when I was a freshman, and ended up playing some local clubs and never stopped. I was actually in a band in high school. I was in a band with Adam Duckowitz from Killswitch.
Oh yeah,
for a few years because we went to the same school together.
Interesting. And you grew up in Massachusetts, correct? That's the connection here. Okay. It seems like that there was obviously a great music scene there. We've talked to a lot of people that were from the Bay Area and San Francisco kind of in the 80s. And it's interesting, like the parallels between like certain geographic areas where like there's a really strong like music scene. There are a lot of people that came from sort of these pockets. So
to give you to give him some context, we just talked to Alex Skolnick the other night from Testament, talking about going around with Anthrax the first time when they were like, oh, there's other people that play heavy music. Oh, this is cool, because he thought he was moving to Hollywood and he ended up in the Bay Area, and then that's when all that shit happened, and he was like, wait, there's other people that like heavy music, and then this happened again in Massachusetts, which is really cool because when you guys came out, I was in a band called Carve, but you guys with like Shadows Fall, Kill Switch Engage, like there was so much, and then of course Adam produced so much awesome music that like became almost the calling card for Massachusetts for like a really long time. We had Hatebreed, you know, as far as just so much shit. Like, what was it like growing up in that wave of the world looking to Massachusetts actually caring about metal?
It's crazy now because I just thought that's how it was. I just thought that's how local scenes were. Like the local bands when I was a kid were just as good as any of the touring bands with record deals. Local bands around here used to draw 300, 400 people easily. And it's just crazy. And, you know, we had Alder Mains, us, Hatebreed, and, you know, On Earth. A lot of just cool bands, cool guys. And we had a blast. And I miss that. I wish the scene was still like that. In Western Mass, it's hard to even find a club to go to.
I don't think it's Western Mass, dude. Usually I think that's the world.
Yeah, but if I want to see a concert, I have to go to either Worcester, the Palladium, or Hartford. We used to have Pearl Street out here and a lot of places, and now it's just not too many anymore.
Yeah, I kind of caught like the tail end of like when I started playing out, I was really young. I was like 14 playing in bars and clubs when you could still smoke and everything. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. Like this is rock, you know, super loud, tons of people. And then after 5 years of like, when I was finally like cutting my teeth and like getting the hang of things, I was like, oh, there's 12 people here and I'm playing for drink tickets. Like
exactly.
What the hell?
Well, yeah, I remember my first show. I never, played a club before, and actually our first show was opening up for a band called Strip Mine that had Sully from Godsmack in it.
Oh really?
Okay.
Yeah,
we just had Shannon Larkin on the other night. He was great. Took a half ounce of shrooms on the show. It was kind of fucking bananas.
Shannon's great. Yeah, we toured with him when he was in Amen. Shadow Swallow. That was like probably our second or third tour.
The Apocalypse.
The Apocalypse.
But yeah, you know, I was thinking like, oh, it's gonna probably be so crazy and packed, and you know, there was like 50 people there. And you're like, oh, all right.
Wow. What do you think happened? Like, what caused that change?
I don't know. That was my very first show. But I just thought like all shows would be packed. And that was like my first reality of, you know what, like that's not the way it is. Like it's not just walk into a club and MTV.
Yeah.
Well, sure. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it was like, here you go, asshole. You know, and I go, oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but do you think, especially with like, you know, your success now and all and the opportunities that you've had, do you think you appreciate that more because you got to kind of come up in that club scene and get to see that it's not 100% glorious all the time?
Yeah, for sure. And especially the way Shadow Swallow started out, we were, you know, sleeping on the band floor and sleeping on hotel floors, you know, 6, 7 guys in a room. And, like I remember even our first Ozfest. I mean, it took us maybe like 4 years of touring to get to that, and you know, and plus we were a buy-on band on top of it. But I remember watching like all these major label bands, and it was their first tour, and they're showing up in tour buses, and they got full road crew and stuff. I'm like, oh, you fucking dick, man! Like, you didn't have to do any of this.
Like, you mean like Starset that shows up with the 18 fucking LED screens?
But that, you know, I joined after that was the case. But I mean, they went through the same thing. I mean, van touring and sleeping.
Same
all
with
of them in
Trans-Siberian
one room,
Orchestra too. But you joined after that as well. It seems to be a trend.
You know, listen, I get spoiled because I'm a violinist, I'm a string player, and those things are always added when the budget exists. You know, you don't. But that's why I appreciate it so much more getting to play closely with guys that went through that, because I'm like, wow, we have it so easy. You know, the schooled people that go to school and then you get a great gig versus the people that really have to hustle.
Yeah, it's brutal out there. But even like it's not like that anymore. Back then in 2003, it was, you know, you get a major deal and get thrown all this money, and your first tours with Ozzy. But now it's a lot harder.
Yeah, no
right.
kidding.
Well, so you mentioned you got into high school, to go back a bit. You started your first band. What was the path from starting to play band, you know, in your first band in clubs and getting gigs to where you are now? Like, how did you start Shadows Fall? Like, what was the trajectory from like your early days into, you know, getting into sort of a more major scene?
So I was, like I said before, I was in a band called Aftershock with Adam from Killswitch Engage. We were doing that, and he was a couple years older than me in high school. So once he graduated, he was going to Berkeley. So when he went to Berkeley, he was so busy with that Aftershock didn't really play too much anymore. And then Matt was in this local band, a death metal band called Exhumed, and I loved that band. And then he stopped playing with them, so I was like, oh man, I'd love to start a band with that guy. And so I sent him a demo of some stuff that I wrote, and he was like, yeah, absolutely, man. He's like, this sounds cool. And then from there, Matt and I just started the band.
The evolution of that, how did that go before, from just getting started together to like the picking up momentum and steam and actually noticing?
Yeah. So that was around 96 when we started that. And then we had a first singer called Damien, then maybe I think it was maybe a year or two. And then Phil from All Their Mains came to sing with us. And that's when stuff started picking up for us locally. We were actually starting to headline locally at least, and travel a little bit, not crazy traveling, but little tours here and there, weekend tours and stuff. And then things didn't work out with us and Phil, and we got Brian. He was in a band called Overcast. I always loved Overcast. They were my favorite local band. And so once we got Brian, that's when some record companies started to look at us. And so we sent a demo out of like 4 or 5 songs with Brian on it, and Century Media picked us up.
That's great.
Yeah,
and then from there, it was just stay on the road. Yeah. and I'm still 20 years later, I'm still on the road. Well, not now. It sucks.
So it's cool to hear like the kind of how the band came together, and it's something that we probably don't see as much anymore because of the lack of a scene. But it seems like basically the cream rises to the top. You have a band, and you start noticing other bands that are at that higher level, and members of that band like, I want that guy in my band. You know what I mean? And you start creating like a local band super group, and then that's the kind of situation where you can kind of go.
Exactly how Shadows Fall was. Like, oh, that guy. Then we go.
Well, you make mental notes.
Now we need a drummer.
Yeah. Well, you always make a mental note. Like I always say that I knew that Cory played a 5150 and he was pretty good on guitar, so I could always share my guitar amp with him. So like when I found out he wasn't in the band anymore, when I went to go drop off my SSL with his old drummer, who's a crazy engineer, I was like, "Can you give me his number?" And he hasn't been able to quit me since.
No. Not.
Well, that's more or less how Star set for him too. I mean, it was kind of like a local super group of people that were sort of the ex-lead men of other bands. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it makes sense though, because you do the cream rises to the top, and then once you have that all together and you get rid of the noise, you can be more focused, and you can tell that people have a more unified vision of what you're trying to do. Yeah,
and you got to get to people who are dedicated too, especially in this line of work, because I mean, when you're playing rock and roll, heavy metal, you're not going to make it unless you go on the road and just fucking do it every night. Yeah. Otherwise, it's like the style of music we were playing wasn't going to get on the radio ever. So
what was the first real tour you guys did like for you?
The first like making it tour was probably like even though you're not making it really, you're just living a little better. It's like when we got our first tour bus, but you're still not really making any money, but you're like, oh my God, this is great. I don't have to piss in a laundry detergent bottle anymore. I can use a bathroom. Drunk pissing all over your hands. But now you're just drunk going sideways back and forth on a bus, pissing all over the seat. But then it was, it's great. You can sleep when you want. You don't have to worry about anything. And wake up when the fuck you want. So having the tour bus was like, yeah, rock stars.
Yeah.
But even though you're like, you got $1.50 in your wallet. So
true.
Right.
But I imagine for you guys, just the fact that you were doing what you wanted to do, and you were getting, if you got a label reaching out to you, and there has to be that like, all right, we're on to something here kind of attitude. And then if you're out on the road, even if you're pissing in a laundry detergent bottle, I'm sure that was had some level of excitement for you guys.
Here's something to think about though, because I remember when Shadows Fall came up, and like to give you an idea, the last tour with Dimebag Darrell, the Damage Plan tour, was Damage Plan Shadows Fall. And I know for a fact, and it almost upset me, John, at the time, that I knew it was a co-headliner tour and you guys switched who went on. So at one point, didn't Dimebag Darrell open for you guys?
Well, yeah, we alternated every other night.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So like, I want people to understand that you guys at one point had some serious fucking respect. That there was a point in time where there was a man named Dimebag Darrell and a dude named Vincent Abbott that would walk on stage, and they would go on before your band. So like, even though you guys only had $1.50 in your wallet, was the perception from people like? I mean, they must have thought you guys have made it. Like, what was it like on tour? People thinking that you were killing it because you had the bus.
Yeah, that was a little bit. That was probably like 2 years later, and things were just a little bit better. Like we had $2.50 in our wallet. But yeah, the first night I'll never forget it because Dime is my all-time favorite guitarist. He's my MVP. I think he can write songs, he can write riffs, he can do leads. He's the full deal to me. So I always say he's my MVP player, and just his personality too. When I was watching those Pantera videos as a kid, I'm like, I need to fucking meet this guy. I need to hang out with this guy. He seems right up my alley. So when I got told we were touring with him, I was like, oh, this is gonna fucking rule. So we were playing in Atlanta, Georgia, at this place called the Masquerade, the first night of the tour.
Oh yeah, I've played there.
And Dime and Vinny flew in. I think they flew in from Dallas. I believe they went to, I don't know, they were like, saw like Van Halen or something the night before. So they flew in late, came in later in the day, and Shadows Falls into the set, and I just hear a guy go, fucking turn it up, man. I turned around and Dime's just sitting there. I was like, holy shit. This is awesome. So that night, we didn't really hang out that night. I don't know why, but the second night was in Florida. And I remember Dime coming up to me and goes, hey, do you want to do some karaoke? Because the place turned into a karaoke bar after the show. So I was like, all right. Classic. He's like, what do you want to do? So I was like, fuck. Well, I got introduced to you through Skid Row because I'm a huge Skid Row freak. And the first time I saw Pantera, they were opening up for Skid Row. I had no idea really who they were. And at first, I didn't even know if I liked it because it was the heaviest thing. I listened to Metallica, but this was like a couple steps up. So the first time I heard it, I was like just watching them like, do I like this? But like the place is going fucking nuts. I'm like, yeah, I think I do. So then Dime and I'm like, all right, let's do some Skid Row. So I did Youth Gone Wild, and I'm getting wasted with him. We're doing Blacktooth after Blacktooth, and I got on a pool table, started knocking drinks over. I got on top of the bar, and they were about to throw me out of the bar. And Dime and his girl Rita were just like paying the bouncers, like, don't touch him, just give him the money, like, leave him alone, leave him alone. And then I don't know how much they paid him or anything, but I still ended up getting kicked out of the fucking place. I remember like waking up on my like bus like table, with head down, like, oh, what the hell happened? But yeah, so just touring with Dime, shit, man, that was one of the highlights of my life, was spending 6 weeks with that guy, and just he not only was he one of the best guitar players and biggest rock stars there is for heavy metal, but he was such a nice guy. And I've never seen a guy hang around bars and buy their fans drinks.
Dude, I always tell a story actually about Dimebag that I fucking love, because Damage Plan came and played the WAF indoor beach party. And afterwards they went to the Lowell Brewery. You know where I'm talking. And I ended up winning $300 off Vinny playing some air hockey. It was a fun time. And there was a back room where, like, I think it was the guys from Drowning Pool. Mike Mangini was there for some fucking weird reason. It was like the Damage Plan guys or whatever. And a Mistress Carrie, and then a bunch of hangers on. And at the end of the night, the cops come in because everyone had been drinking like an incredible amount. And, you know, Dimebag goes, excuse me, sir, I was informed that the bands get to drink for free. And like, he's wasted. Like he literally had pushed a chick towards me and told me to draw Ace Frehley makeup on her fucking face with a permanent Sharpie marker, maybe 5 minutes before this. Like, so this is where we were at. And like, I literally thought they were going to arrest Dimebag Darrell. They asked for his license. And I'm thinking to myself, does it say Darrell, like, comma, Dimebag? And like, and as they're about to like arrest him, he pulls out like a black card and throws it down, and he goes, I got everybody in this room. And like, he paid for everybody, like a $5,000 tab. I mean, like literally a bunch of alcoholics had been drinking for a long time, and he paid for all of it, and like threw it at the police officer. And I remember thinking to myself, that is rock and roll, as I turned back around to say hi to the girl and introduce myself that I had just drawn on her face in permanent marker because of Dimebag Darrell.
Yeah, he was the ultimate rock star. Like I said, I'd never seen a rock star buy the fans drinks. Usually the fans are like, "Hey, can I buy you a drink?" And he's just doing rounds. He was more. I was hoping he was going to be who he was, and he was more than I wanted. And I was like, he was the ultimate fucking dude.
That's amazing.
Yeah, well, I will say though, because my friend Rob Noxious, our friend Rob Noxious, he's a great photographer. He was there that night that I was going back and forth with Vinny doing the air hockey thing and hanging out with Dime, and he left his fucking camera in the car. And I'm like, I could have had these unbelievable, like, because Vinny and I are going back and forth, and he's fucking calling me names, and they just judged some like bikini contest, so they got like all these bikini girls around, and like he's like, fuck the Patriots, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck about hockey, like going back, and we're just yelling things, and I'm like, Rob, where's your fucking camera? No, there's no testament to this night other than the fact that I have to remember it. And it was hard to remember because I think it was 7 and 7s what were being put in my hand that evening. There's a lot of them. That was a Bobzilla, I think, thing. He was just handing me 7s. Yeah, and 7s.
They had some black velvet all the time on that tour.
All the time.
I mean, there's no way I'd be able to handle it now.
Oh my gosh. So when was this tour that you were talking about? What year was this? Do you remember?
That was in 2004. So we actually, we left, so the last night of the tour was in Clifton Park, New York. And they were just going home to Dallas to do some shows. So they had like maybe 2 or 3 shows on the way home. So when that happened, everyone thought we were on the tour still. So I remember when that happened, my phone blew up that night, like crazy.
So people know, because like it seems redundant, but maybe Siobhán doesn't know, and probably my mom who's listening. Dimebag Darrell from Pantera was shot in the face at the Villa Rosa, that in Ohio, by a fan, a crazy fan, and he shot at Vinnie Paul, whose tech took a bullet to the neck and saved his, like literally jumped in front of a bullet for Vinnie Paul. Wow. And, killed a bunch of people, and he was killed on site by an undercover cop. But like, yeah, I remember like the whole world changed after that, as far as how bands interacted with their fans. And I remember my phone blowing up because I just hung out with him for my birthday. Vinnie Paul had given us a bunch of passes, and we'd seen him at the Palladium and hung out, and it was like, what, 2.5 weeks before that. Yeah. So like, I remember waking up hearing that and then throwing up, like literally thinking that was, I didn't even know how to process it. Like that was like,
yeah, I didn't think it was. I was just like, "There's no way this is real." And then I turned on the news, and I was like, "Holy shit!" I was fucking just broke down. Couldn't believe it. So, yeah, I was like, "I'm like, how would that happen?" I'm like, "He's the coolest guy. Like, there's got to be something wrong here." Like, he's the nicest guy.
On December 8th, nonetheless, the same day that John Lennon was shot, which is just fucked up. So it's like a really crazy dark day now, because now you got Dimebag and John Lennon.
Right.
And Paul Lorenzo, our drummer's dad's birthday is December 8th. Coincidence? I don't know. I think there's some weird, trippy netherworld
There's
shit
probably quite a few
David
things that happen
Aberzees
on December 8th.
I'm sure.
And Shannon can interpret through Nuno Betancourt's Dream Weaver. Catcher.
Oh my God. Wow. Yeah, that's heavy. So following that, what was life like for you after that? What did you go on to do after that tour?
That tour, so that tour ended in December, and then what did we do after that? I think, well, it's so hard to remember, but
no, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think we ended up going to Australia, but then I remember being in Australia, and that's when we got like another milestone news for me was, do you guys want to go on tour with Slipknot and Lamb of God and do arenas? Which I'd never been on an arena tour before.
Yeah.
Right.
So I remember like Matt and I were roommates in Australia. We're like, what the fuck? Well, holy shit, we're gonna play arenas. So yeah, and then that April, us Slipknot and Lamb of God went out, and that was rock and roll, man. Like we were all having a good time back then, and then from there, like that was Shadow Swallow golden year was 2005, and then after that we went on tour with Ozfest with Black Sabbath, Maiden, Black Label Society. And so like that was like my holy shit year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was Maiden really better than Black Sabbath every night, like everyone knows?
Well, this is funny because like Maiden was so on fire, but they were only doing the first 3 records. So
well, they're dicks like that because they have so many fans. They're like the Grateful Dead of metal, where they could play a different set list every single night and people will love it. But instead of playing a different set list, they played the same set list for an entire tour to torture people. If you don't like the album, Benjamin Brigg or Virtual 11, they'll you know what? I bet you Bruce Dickinson sitting going, I should sing every Blaze Bayley song on the next tour just to piss off everybody.
That'd be great.
He even acknowledges it. He does the sign of the Southern Cross, which is 11 minutes off the X Factor, and I don't understand it. It's like, dude, let's just ignore it. Let's push it down like the Priest and the Cub Scout meet. Like, let's just push it down like the Memory. Instead, Bruce is like, I'm gonna sing the Blaze era shit. I don't get it.
But that tour too, like that kind of brought them back to the U.S. to get a younger audience, because I remember like not a lot of young people were listening to Maiden in that tour, and they were fucking just killing it. Kids were falling in love with them who never heard who they were.
Ozfest is such like a, I don't know, like a happy memory for me. Like that was the coolest show you could go to every year and everything. So, do you got any cool backstage tour stories or anything that happened while you're out doing that? Yeah,
it was just surreal, man. I mean, so many from that tour because all these legends. Like the first few days of Ozfest, I was having amp problems, and I just kept fucking blowing my amps for some reason. I don't know why. Nobody could figure it out, and even all the techs, like Iron Maiden's, like, I don't even want to plug in my shit after watching you. Like they're afraid to use the power. Yeah. And so I was having problems, and Zakk Wylde was just like, hey man, you can use my stuff if you need to. Whoa. So I did a couple of gigs on Zakk Wylde's rig, which is, insane.
Jeez.
I mean, if you told me that when I was 12, there's no way I would believe that I would ever even, never mind play through or meet him, but then be on the same stage and be able to have that chance. So that was a crazy moment in time. And
how did that match up to what you were playing? I mean, because you always hear the story of it doesn't sound like Zakk or this or that. Was it like to play through Zakk's rig? Was it heavy enough for you?
Absolutely, so true. It didn't sound like Zakk, and I'm like, I mean, did he give me his broken amp? How come I'm not playing like? But yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah, players. I really do believe most of it is in your hand and in your attitude.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like that was my first time playing. Probably only time I ever played my hero's rig. I don't think. No, I played through Dime stuff too. A funny story about Dime. He was having problems with his rig, and he had all this rack stuff. And I'm an idiot when it comes to gear. I don't know shit about gear, so I had a pretty simple setup. And I was just using any type of cord that I could find. I didn't care if it was Monster or Planet Waves. I was like, it's a cord. Does it work? I'll use it.
Yeah.
And it's just like little piece of shit cord. And Dime comes over. He goes, "What's with that fucking cord, man? It looks like would you get this with a Hondo guitar?" and I just looked at him. I go, "Oh, it works every night." And he goes, "Fuck you." But yeah, and then on Ozfest, we were just sometimes our room would be right next to Ozzy's room, and I could hear Ozzy warming up to a keyboard, doing his scales, and it's like, holy shit. Like, Ozzy's like next wall over.
That's
singing.
crazy. That's something I can't picture.
Yeah.
The weird thing is with Ozzy, and maybe you could speak to this, but I feel like on the different Ozfests and even the different tours, that Ozzy's gone from absolutely horrifyingly bad to really good to kind of in between to horrifyingly bad. And this has been since the 80s. Because if you watch like the live video that he did with Brad Gillis, it's totally faked, because if you watch any of like the actual stuff, like, he's totally off everywhere. And then, but then in like the 90s when he came back with Joe Holmes, I thought he sounded sick when I first saw him on some of those first Oz, like the 97, he sounded awesome. But then I went out and saw Black Sabbath when they came to Lollapalooza in Chicago. Drove all the way to Chicago just to see Sabbath. I was like 2 fucking songs into it. Ozzy did not hit one fucking note. They said that Tony Iommi had lymphoma. I'm like, he's not going to pull a Dio on my fucking watch. I'm going. And then I ended up watching the Black Keys.
Ah, shit.
I think, people have off nights. You probably
hear every
decades.
night for me.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, up till this point, do you have any memories of moments on stage or interactions or something that really like made a change in your life, or that you noticed a change in your playing? I'm just always curious to hear how people develop their musicianship. Do you have any like pivotal moments that you can recall?
Yeah, I mean, probably that Ozfest when I could turn around at any given day and Zakk would be on the stage, or Velvet Revolver was on some of the dates. I remember turning around and Duff's sitting there with his white cowboy hat, from his Paradise City video, and standing behind our drummer, and it's like, holy shit, Stuff like Hagen's right there, or guys from Maiden, and just turning around and seeing these guys on the side of the stage that I've had on my bedroom wall, since I was 10, not thinking they're real. And then they actually, they acknowledge you. And remember like Adrian Smith stopping me in the hallway once saying, "Oh, I heard you on the radio last night." Like, whoa. Adrian Smith knows who I am.
Yeah. What was the atmosphere like? Obviously you're touring with all these bands, all these people, and you're only playing for, you're an hour a day or something. Like what was life like behind the stages with everyone?
That was that was before everyone had iPhones and iPads. It was that was like kind of like the tail end where some bands are still partying. So it was a lot of fun.
Well, what's the difference? Okay, so let me ask you this. So a band like Maiden, okay, I'm wearing an Iron Maiden shirt. Nobody wants to see anyone else other than Maiden. Unless you have like Metallica and Venom opening. And even then, it's like, I'll show up for Whom the Bells Toll, but as long as I don't miss any Maiden. Like, and then another band like Slayer. But meanwhile, you played with Shadows Fall opening for Maiden, but now you play in Anthrax, who are considered one of the big 4. Is there a difference opening for a band like Maiden when you're in Shadows Fall, and maybe the older generation doesn't acknowledge you in the same way as when you come on stage opening for Maiden with Anthrax?
Yeah, well, I think for Shadows Fall, we had it a little bit easier because we're doing Ozfest. So it was such a mixed crowd, and a lot of radio rock people go to that. And I always love playing for the radio rock crowd because they're so enthusiastic and they just want to have a good time. There's not a lot of just arms folded, like a lot of underground metal. And they're like, all right, what do you got? Prove it to me that I should watch you. Whereas the radio crowds is more like, all right, let's have some beers and go crazy and have a good time. So it wasn't just an Iron Maiden show, because I think if it was just Shadows Fall, Iron Maiden, we probably got fucking rocks thrown at us. But then Anthrax has more of that classic style, and it fits more with Maiden. And so the Anthrax did great opening up for Iron Maiden. That was one of my favorite tours too. We did South America with Iron Maiden, and we got to fly on their private plane with them.
Oh, I saw.
That's awesome.
And on top of that, Bruce Dickinson was flying it. So.
Yeah.
Does Bruce Dickinson make sure that you guys know about your tray tables being in the upright and locked position? And
it's it's no different than being on a regular flight. It's all the rules and everything, but the only thing is, like, Bruce Dickinson comes over the intercom and tells you what the weather's going to be like, how long the flight's going to be, and he's like, take a look over the left wing and you'll see whatever the hell is there, and you're like, I know this voice. I've been listening to this voice since I was 10 years old.
Can I tell you the disappointment I have with that, though? Because
What's
you're
that?
on a plane with Nico McBrain, and I don't know if you remember this, because I'm from a time where I used to go to Media Play and search through the import bin to find all the Maiden singles, and there was this little series called Listen with Nico. Where he would sit there, and for 15 minutes he would tell tour stories like, ladies and gentlemen, and you obviously understand the way he talks. Like, he's completely the most. He was like Captain Jack Sparrow. Keith Richards times 1,000, and he'd be like, "Oh, this one time we were in the middle of Perth," and 15 minutes of this, and there's, like, if you listen to it all together, there's 150 minutes of Nico McBrain telling Maiden war stories on the B side to these, to like the Seventh Son and the Seventh Son record and all, and I listen to all of them, and I gotta tell you, I love Bruce Dickinson. I think he's an orator. I think he's a great singer. But when you're sitting on a plane with Nico, I feel like he should be the one talking about the weather.
Well, Nico, the times I've toured with him, he was the most outgoing. Like, even from the start with Shadows Fall, he'd be the guy who just pop in and hang out with, fucking just a bunch of 25-year-old kids, and he's coming in and hanging out, telling us stories. Like, this is so cool. Like, that he's actually doing this. He doesn't need to. He's way beyond this. But he'd come in the room when I was with Anthrax, he was come in with the Trooper beer, come in with T-shirts, hook you up, just over the top nice guy.
Do you think any of the Iron Maiden guys ever wear the same Iron Maiden shirt ever?
Yeah,
I feel like they're on stage every night. They're always wearing a different Maiden shirt, and I'm like, I feel like someone cut that up for them right before the show and said, "Here's a new one."
Yeah, I'm sure they got enough money to get a new Maiden.
But is that making it to you? Like, is that making it never having to wear the same band shirt that you charge $50 to fans for?
I guess it could be a side of it.
So can you talk a little bit about joining Anthrax and how that happened? Obviously, you were with your other band and playing. So how did that whole thing come about?
That was another super lucky opportunity I got, and it hit at the time I needed it. Shadows Fall, a couple of the guys were having kids or about to have kids and got married, and they're just didn't want to be on the road anymore. And we weren't making enough where you could have that kind of stuff. You had to be on the road all the time, and it was when you had to be selfish. You can't be selfish anymore once you have a wife and kids. So it can't be like, well, I might make this much money, or I might not, but I'm going to go have fun. So it came to the point where they had to choose that path, and then Anthrax lost their guitarist, and they asked me to fill in, and I was like, absolutely, because I kind of saw the writing on the wall with Shadows Fall. So Rob actually, the guitar player, hooked me up because he knew he was gonna leave, and he wanted to make sure that they were all set.
He joined Volbeat, for people that don't know. Rob Caggiano, who's an amazing guitar player, and Volbeat packs. They were on tour. Yeah. They're unbelievable, the draw and the radio appeal that they have as a band that's pretty fucking heavy.
Yeah, over in Europe, they're superstars, man, like full-on arena rock star. But he wanted to make sure that that they were covered and didn't want to leave them hanging. And he knew we knew each other, and so he asked me if I'd be interested, and I was like, yeah, 100%. And then I didn't hear anything for a little bit, and I didn't know what was going on. Then maybe 2-3 weeks later, Scott Ian called me, and he goes, I heard you know what's going on. I go, yeah. He goes, hey, can you do it? I go, fucking absolutely.
Sure. Wow.
And then I went to Australia with them. I never even got to jam with them. It was just like, I jammed with Scott a little bit, but it was, here, learn these songs and just be ready. And, oh, God, that first show, holy shit, I was
So you had no
shaking.
rehearsal, or?
No, just, I jammed with Scott. I went to Scott's house, and we went over the riff, and then I got there, and it was just like,
How many people were you in front of in Australia?
Well, that was a club show to warm it up. So maybe, I don't know, maybe 1,000. But then the next night was Soundwave, which is like 80,000. You know, because Metallica and Slayer were on that tour.
At least you had a day to practice.
Yeah, exactly. But I remember, oh my God, I was just so nervous the first show, and you know, just nauseous and nervous. And I had a live video they sent me so I would know how the songs ended and how they segued into other ones. But oh man, it was constantly it was in my head of I couldn't even enjoy it almost. Like I was like, holy I can't believe I'm playing with Anthrax, but I'm like, what the fuck's coming up next?
Yeah.
So how long of a period of how much time did you have to actually prepare? Like,
so I think it was almost 2 months. So it was a little bit of time, thank God, because I learned stuff so slow. It takes me a while to pick up on things. So I'm not they know that to me, because if we have played a song before, a lot of times they'll be jamming in the dressing room, and we'll be going on in like 15 minutes. And those guys will just start jamming on songs that they haven't played in a while. And they're like, John, do you know this? I'm like, like, kind of, not enough to do this. Like, can you give me a little bit? Like, it takes, I don't know. I learn stuff slow, and I really have to like get my muscle memory down and stuff. I don't know how these guys can learn songs in like, I learn a song a day. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah. Well, it's also going to be weird because with Shadows Fall, obviously you were playing songs that you guys were writing and developing, I'm sure. And so like they kind of had this organic like growth within your memory and everything. And then you're going to a band, you know, where it's like, learn these things that already exist and like, and get that buried in your cerebellum there.
And that does make it harder. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But even with Shadows Fall, if they're like, hey, you want to play a show next month? I'd be like, no, I can't. I got to go over this stuff.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this, because other than a band maybe like Megadeth, who's gone through a lot of great guitar players, where people go, well, he's not Marty. Well, Kiko's really good. Like, you know what I'm talking about. Anthrax has had a bunch of really great players. You've had Dan Spitz. You've had Paul Crook, who Meatloaf stole away. You've had Rob Caggiano. You know, obviously, Dimebag himself came down and played on Volume 8. So it's like, you know, you're going up against these other guys. And as far as I'm concerned, like, yo, bro, like you fucking hung out and then brought Anthrax to a new level. I'm watching you guys on Jimmy Kimmel and I'm going, holy fuck, people care about metal when it's Anthrax.
Yeah. The cool thing with those guys is I'm terrible. I can never be a note for note guy. I could never learn somebody else's solos the way they play them. I have to. They gave me the freedom. They said, you know, you know, they obviously didn't want me to totally facelift the fucking solos. They want still recognizable to their fans, but Charlie's like, you know, be yourself too. So I add myself into all those classic solos, and I use them as a blueprint where, like Megadeth is a little bit different. If you go out there and you start messing with Marty solos or stuff, like people be like, no, I don't think Dave's gonna want that.
You guys covered,
fans don't want that.
You covered Ozzy, and Ozzy's a perfect example of this because Zakk Wylde came back in and he did, you know, and Jake E. Lee and Brad Gillis and all those guys all have Gus G have all interpreted the Ozzy songs differently, and I feel like people have judged them based on how they've added their own flair. In particular, the Zakk Wylde squeals weren't there before when Randy Rhoads was playing Crazy Train.
Right, but I like that. I mean,
I do too.
Because I like to hear the guitarist's personality, and the Zakk wasn't. You knew the solo. I mean, to somebody who doesn't play guitar, they don't know that he's doing some different shit. He's hitting the big melodies and the fast runs. He's adding his own stuff in. But I like when I can hear a live record, and I don't know, like if it's on a jukebox at a bar or something. I'm like, oh, that's Zakk. Oh, that's Jake. You know who's playing the solo live, and they put their own personality in it. I like that instead of just clone guitar players.
Sure. Well, and that's amazing that you have the opportunity to, have your own voice. Because, I'm sure it exists where people have to come in and just do exactly what was there, and you're kind of oppressed in a certain way,
Yeah, I mean, that'd be a scary job. I mean, some people could do that. I would never be able to be, you have to play exactly the solo note for note. I just wouldn't be able to do it, but I can use it as a blueprint and get in the ballpark. And to someone, like I said, who doesn't play guitar, they probably would notice too much. The guy who does play guitar would be like, well, that's not that run. They'll pick it out, but I try to stick in the area and the theme of whatever's going on, but then add my own flavor to it.
But you pointed out something really important, because we're in a whole world where all these guys are copycat and they can play everything at a faster BPM, and they grew up at a time where everything's quantized, and you have bands like Animals as leaders, and Dream Theater isn't even crazy anymore. And you're pointing out something that I feel like is missing with a lot of people, which is not having to play things so exact and so perfect, but knowing it's Zakk or knowing it's Jake, because those songs, listening to an 84 bootleg with Jakey Lee is a different feel. Even hearing Mr. Crowley than hearing it with Randy Rhoads and hearing it with Zakk Wylde, and they're different songs to me, and they mean different things, and I like different things about them. And when you have all these new players that are playing note for note perfect, it goes back to classical, where they're just being told exactly what to do. And it's that's just Chopin, versus saying, wow, that's Zakk doing Mr. Crowley. Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I love to be able to tell the difference between the guitarist, and I don't care. I love when Glenn Drover was in Megadeth. I love his playing so much. And I could tell.
I love Glenn.
And he just got this super slick feel, and just right on. And
he's Canadian, dude. That's why. Ask anyone in Lost Symphony. We have Kelly Luck. We have Kelly Luck, and he's from Canada. And actually, he got noticed by Glenn Drover because he actually had notated a Glenn Drover solo, and Glenn had admitted to him that he had no idea if it was right or not. But Sean had asked people if anyone could do it, and Kelly's Steve Vai level Frank Zappa nerd, where he can notate anything. So he actually sent Glenn Drover probably perfect, because his handwriting is immaculate.
Pristine,
his solo, and Glenn Drover's holy shit, and that's because those guys in Canada, there's something up there. Because Kelly, you heard, I remember when we played you Lost Symphony for you and Matt, because you came down and you're like, all right, let's do this, and I saw a little bit of fear in your eyes, and it made me very happy.
No, that stuff's guys like that are on another planet. I don't even know. I'm you think you play guitar, then you watch somebody like that.
Yeah, it's funny that always there's always someone at the next level, and it's just you might as well just enjoy what you're doing, because no matter how amazing you are, there's always someone that son of a bitch.
Especially now, now you go on Instagram and there's a 9-year-old kicking the shit out of you.
I was just gonna say that, especially with violinists, it's there's a 4-year-old that wins some international violin competition.
Because you're breeding children now with the internet and Clockwork Orange, Stanley Kubrick style, putting kids in front of Van Halen bootlegs and making them listen to music as they fall asleep, and you're operantly conditioning these kids to be virtuoso players. Good for you. Yeah. What's important to me is making me feel a certain way. And all a child who's 7 years old makes me feel, playing Eruption better than me, makes me feel is upset for them that they don't have a childhood and that someone has tortured them into playing Van Halen this well, and that I don't spend any time to get better, and that I should be ashamed of myself because American and people think that I'm the best, and I'm not even close to the best.
I think too sometimes people's flaws on guitar give them their own style, because certain guys are awesome alternate pickers, or some guys are awesome legato. You just have to kind of run with what your strength is. Or my thing is my ear is not that great, so whenever I would try to learn a song, I'd mess up and I'd write my own stuff, and then I would just go off well, that's kind of cool. That sounds cool. I'll just stop trying to learn that now and just keep going with this.
Very cool. Hey, we're up at the end of this first hour here. So, Jon, thank you. Obviously, I think people can find Anthrax and Shadows Fall, but why don't you say again? Is it Living Wreckage is the new band?
Yeah, so Living Wreckage. You can find us on Facebook, and we should have new music. I mean, a song might drop. I don't know how long this will take to come out, but maybe by the time this comes out, people will be able to hear a first taste of what it sounds like.
And we'll make sure, if that's the case, we'll have a link in the description.
For sure.
Let me ask you, is the review that I read by Tim Osmond accurate about this new record? Because if so,
let's dive into it in the next episode.
Well,
I want to hear it.
Do you know who Tim Osmond is? He's the greatest record reviewer of all time. Jon, can you tell him?
Yeah, Tim Osmond from Iron Gates magazine. He's a stickler too, man. He doesn't like a lot of stuff.
So that's
what people don't know is that's actually Matt Bashand.
Yeah.
No, that's Matt Bashand from Shadows Fall and their first review. He wrote it. And in fact, one of my greatest possessions is a signed Shadows Fall thing from Tim Osmond and Jon Donais. And with that, you've been 2020. Jon, I hope you'll stick around, make yourself another drink. And everybody else, you should subscribe and go listen to Living Wreckage.
And we'll see you for part 2 with Jon.
So, being in Diecast, playing that, and then just... it was the hardcore scene is a lot different than the metal scene also, so there was a lot of violence.
Interesting.
I could literally tell you a million stories about very, very violent things that we were involved in and things
like at
that happened.
shows or just like
everything. Yeah, we were like we weren't a band. We were a fucking pack of wolves. We weren't. And when you're on tour with other hardcore bands, you bond with them. You are a pack of wolves.
Wow.
And if anyone messes with you or whatever, and you're kids and you're full of angst and you're not getting paid and you're surviving on pizza and stealing beef jerky from 7-Elevens to get your protein, I would totally just rob 7-Elevens, not literally rob, but steal and everything else. I didn't have a lot of money. I was running up all kinds of credit card debt. The vans were falling apart. We were stealing parts of vans from I won't say from where and stuff, but
I think the statute of limitations is passed.
Oh no, it's okay. Ben told a whole story about it, how he basically conned someone into stealing a guitar for him on one of our previous episodes.